Hello, dear listeners. This is Tatiana Cherepanova, and this is the podcast Innovating with Peruana. In this podcast, we are interviewing people who change the world and who think outside the box. And in this episode, we have my dear friend Ksenia Lipatova, with who I share 24 years of friendships. She's an educator just like me, and I'm looking forward to have this conversation with her. Well, I'm so glad to have you here in the studio with me, and thank you for finding time actually to sit together before your departure. So, could you please introduce yourself to our viewers so they know with who I'm talking today?
Hi, my name is Ksenia. Thank you so much for your invitation. I'm glad to be here as well. Uh, I'm a teacher. I teach math and English.
Well, as you know, our podcast is all about innovation, and I'm inviting to the studio the most innovative people from the friends that I know. So the logic is that Ksenia, we have been friends for 24 years now since childhood, and she is one of the most groundbreaking people that I know from all the friends that I have in Russia. She always thinks outside of the box. And that's why I want to introduce all my Peruvian audience and an international audience who follows this podcast, just to see, how we, the Russian women, think alike or different from the rest of the world. So, what do you think makes us different from the rest of the world in Russia?
I wanted to say that I'm a little bit surprised that you said that I'm I always think outside of the box because it's just, I don't know, my normal thinking. And I also want to say that you are kind of like an example for me, and you have always been. And your story, and um, now where you are now, it's amazing. And what makes us different? You mean from like us in Russia, from
Yeah, I guess from the other
everyone?
people. Well,
Hmm.
maybe you don't have as much experience, with traveling abroad, but maybe you had some foreign friends. What do you think is like our way of thinking here in this country that makes us so unique?
I would say that uh, everyone has their own experience, and I wouldn't say that in Russia we're so very different from every other country. I think all of us are different in our own way, and everything that we've experienced makes us us and different like this. Our culture and how to say, like, places we live in, mentality, our parents, and education system, of course.
Well, I guess yeah, you are absolutely right. I agree with you that it really depends which part of Russia you are born in. Because many times, I guess, the audience thinks, okay, Russia, all the Russians are the same. All the Russians like the same things, which is not true, obviously. Because, well, one thing that people don't realize that we have a multi-ethnic country, multi-religious country. So there are people who follow Islam, Buddhism here. We also have lots of people who speak different languages that is not Russian. So that makes us all different. But I guess, yeah, like from my experience living in the foreign countries for so long, yeah, for those who don't know, I have been living 8 years in Peru now, and before that, 3 years in the Netherlands, and I was also on exchange, as you remember, when I was 17 in the United States of America. So I guess for me personally, one key thing that defines us as the nation is the resilience and perseverance. Because as you probably know from the Russian history that we study in high school, there has been two world wars in the 20th century, lots of political confusion and different things happening in the country's history lately. So I guess that makes us really flexible, and we are always prepared no matter what. Because if you think about what happened in the last 10 years when we were growing up, definitely it's life changing experiences for the best, for the worst, I don't know yet, because let's see where the life will bring us. But going back to you as an educator, so could you please explain a little bit more about what sort of teacher you are? Because, well, for those who don't know, I am personally a world history and geography teacher. I work in a private school in Lima, Peru, called Newton College, which is quite an expensive school. And here in Russia, actually, we are sitting and making this podcast in St. Petersburg. Private education is not very widespread. There are some schools that are private elite schools, but the majority of people in Russia go to the public schools. So could you please explain the audience a little bit about what subjects do you teach or that you used to teach in the past? And also a little bit, let's talk about differences in education.
Okay, yeah. I work in a public school, just a normal school in a small town in Russia.
Well, just to explain about the small town in Russia, I mean, I wouldn't call it small. Vyborg is where we are from. It's 80,000 people, and 80,000 people, I think in Lima, Peru, it would be the entire district of Miraflores in one of the capital districts. And it's not just any town. Like, as you probably, if you follow my stories, you know that my town is our town because we grew up together in it. It's actually has been created by the Swedish people, and it has 700 years of history. Right now, we are sitting with you in St. Petersburg, and St. Petersburg is only 300 years old. So
Yeah.
let's not diminish the importance of our town. But so, okay, what about your subjects? What do you teach?
So I teach math, as I said, and English, and also I taught Russian and Russian language, Russian literature. It was interesting experience, and also I taught um, elementary school, so all subject like math, also Russian language, um, some like science,
How is that
sort of.
possible? I'm sorry for interrupting, but how is that possible that you can juggle around with so many different subjects?
I don't know. Like you said, we don't know what is up to us, and we're always ready for everything. And I wasn't thinking about this before when I was just studying. I wanted to be like an elementary school teacher. I thought that I'm gonna be just an elementary school teacher, but then uh, it happened. I don't know. Um,
Do you remember when you made this decision to become a teacher?
mm, no, it wasn't my like childhood dream or something. It was kind of the best option that I had this time when I was just graduated from school, and I just thought that it would be nice to be a teacher.
If I think about my story, do you remember who I wanted to be when when we were playing together in the childhood?
Maybe something like political related or
Yeah,
something like that.
if I think about that, international relations. I think my parents always wanted me to be like working in the international organization, be a diplomat, somebody like world famous, but in the field of politics. And then, actually, for those who don't know, but yeah, I studied international studies, and many of my friends right now who studied with me in the Netherlands, they work in the sphere of international relations. I have a couple of friends in the embassies, in the Dutch one, in the Czech Republic one. But then something happened. You probably remember 2016 when my mom suddenly passed away. And then I just didn't have a choice. I couldn't just continue with my master degree. And in Europe in 2016, you could have a bachelor degree in any career. You can speak several languages, but the potential of actually having a decent job and staying there was really low. Or maybe I am telling myself this story. I don't know. Maybe it's just, me believing that. And then all of a sudden, I just had this brilliant idea to do a volunteer program. So I went to Chile to the program called English Opens Doors. And there I started as a teacher. And then I thought, okay, I really like it. So what do we need to do for that? Study master degree in education. And I also got certification in Cambridge University for English training. So actually, if you think about that, I was first an English teacher myself, and then I became world history and geography teacher. So that's more or less our like story together, how we got into the teacher's world. Which is different paths, but I guess what we can conclude, both of us didn't really know that this is what is going to happen with our lives. Yeah. So, what do you think is maybe not okay right now with the Russian education? I heard you complaining quite a lot about how things are not going smoothly necessarily. What do you think are maybe the top two or top three problems that you see right now in the classroom?
I think the system itself, it's kind of outdated, I
Mm-hmm.
would say. And um, kids nowadays, um, the world is changing like very, very fast. And it's hard to keep up with everything. And every year, kids are different, I would say. And the system, it can't, the system itself can't keep up with everything. Um, but of course, we're trying. We, not us teachers, but the government and the people like above us, they're trying. But maybe, like you said, top two problems. These people who um, who are trying to think of a better ways to teach our kids. They have never worked at schools, or they worked for a really, really short period of
Mm-hmm.
time, so they don't have enough experience
Mm-hmm.
for that, so they can't know what we need as a teachers. And also in public schools, we have kind of strict plans, and like everything that we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
um, of course, we can, I know, like mm, change the timing, but we can change topics or something. And sometimes we even have particular topics and materials to teach these topics. And in one hand, it might be helpful. You don't need to prepare a lot for the lessons, but sometimes you want to do something else, like outside of this, and you can't.
If I think about what my story is with the subjects that I have to teach, I am on totally other side of the spectrum. So in the private education, especially in Latin America, when we have this IB system called International Baccalaureate, actually it exists all over the world, and you can find the similar systems in anywhere actually. There are a lot of freedom what you can teach. For example, I can choose only key concepts that I want to explore, let's say systems or change, the word change itself. And then I can pick any historical period of time as a history teacher and just decide what do I want to study. So at first you might say, wow, that's amazing, you can study literally anything. But then what I've noticed recently is that whoever is the creator of this content still tries to connect it to the things that he or she knows a lot. For example, let's say we have two people who were curriculum builders in our department. One is Belgian and another one is American. So, for example, the unit created by this American guy, it's like heavy on American history, let's say, slavery and migration. And the one that was created by a Belgian boss of mine, he is focusing it more on the post colonialism of some territories that were under control of Belgium. So unfortunately, what I realized that either way is not really okay. So having it too controlled, like in the case of the Russian government, and saying this is what you have to teach, and there is no other way of doing that, or having too much freedom, it also goes like into unpredictable ways because you just cherry pick whatever is interesting to you and just give it to the students, and then well, the problem with this abundance of freedom, I guess, is that they don't really have a clear idea of chronological development of history. So they just have pieces and bits of information, but they cannot really mesh it together. And it's a big, how I call it, a Russian salad in their head because it's such a mix of different ingredients. So, yeah. Do you guys use artificial intelligence right now in 2024 in Russian schools in any way?
Um, we can, but it's not necessary, not always. Um, I know there is a platform from um, Yandex,
Mm-hmm.
uh, GPT, and you can prepare some, I don't know, quizzes or tests with this. But sometimes, and um, I'm speaking about my personal experience, and now I work in a smaller public school, and uh, kids there, they need only like very basic materials, so um, they don't even need many innovations because they just need to get like the basics,
Mm-hmm.
and it can distract them, I would say. Or um, we also have um, less time than in a more normal public school. Um, not so many lessons per week. So, yeah, I would love to do something like that. And when I was just starting my teaching career, I always I was trying to prepare something different, something interesting for each lesson. But sometimes when you think that it's gonna be like the most interesting lesson ever, the most interesting thing, you can't predict it because kids they can think that it's like the most boring thing that you think was brilliant. So yeah, and it's kind of I know you just need to try if you really want to use all these technologies because there are a lot of things you can use, but not every um, maybe the way I call them kids every time, not the best way. Student, every student needs their own um, thing though thing. So um,
You mean so you need to be more inclusive and diversify your lessons because everybody has different needs. Somebody's slow in reading, other persons struggle with math. That's what you're trying to say.
yeah, and in class, like every class is different too. Like I
That's right.
said, now I work um, in a small classes, and kids need only basic materials, so they don't need much um, this like uh, AI stuff, or they actually don't even have access to computers. They only have their phones, and they don't have much time to use them. So they would never use them for tests and quizzes. I would prepare because they can just go on TikTok or something like this.
That's totally different from the world that I live in. Actually, if I think about how much time we spend on the computer, I think like in all the lessons, once the student comes in our school, he automatically puts the computer, the laptop on top of the table. So yeah, we have full coverage of Wi-Fi throughout the entire school. And we can use a platform called Google Classroom. Now we are switching to a different one, but the idea is that all the lesson sequences published there. And actually, we have lots of self-paced lessons. This is something new that I actually found out working right now in Newton. Because previously it was teacher-led activities mostly in the previous schools. And as you probably know, the major form was lecturing, right? Like once we were students ourselves, it was the teacher all the time saying things and then the students annotating them. And I guess from what I see, you're telling me in Russia, it still remains largely the same. And it's really ambitious that you're trying to change the system, and it must be hard considering how short are the lessons. And also sad to know that actually technological development doesn't, come to public schools. But I guess it's a lot of money as well, because if we think about that, computers are very expensive. And yes, indeed, like paper-based materials or textbook-based materials are cheaper to acquire and more. I guess it's easier to control as the government, right? Because as you said, like cell phones can be a huge distraction for the kids. Speaking about distractions, I don't know if you have noticed that the attention span of people is going shorter. Like, with constant scrolling on social media, people cannot really focus. I think I've read somewhere in the studies that says that before we could focus for 12 seconds without like our any idea of interrupting us in our head, but now it's shorter by 4 seconds or so. So now people cannot concentrate as much. So I don't know if you also see that constant, like ADHD patterns in among your students, or any other mental health issues maybe not connected with concentration.
Um, I wanted to say, to be fair, not us, like ourselves are trying to change the system, because, like I said, they trying to change the system and to put the only lecturing away, but uh, the problem is that it's not always working because of the ways they
Implement.
yeah for
By them, you mean the Russian Ministry of Education?
yeah.
Okay, so I think you said something like many times people who make these methodologies are not the actual teachers, so they don't know what the realities of the classroom are. Okay, but going back to the students being interested in the subject, so do you notice that on average, like with every consecutive year, people are getting more distracted and less interested in school on average?
Yeah, yeah, I would say so. And I think even like us as like average people can notice that from ourselves, that it's harder to concentrate on like longer videos, or to read a book longer than like an hour or something like this. So it's, I would say, a bigger problem that only like an educational problem and students.
Yeah, I think it needs to be somehow regulated on the government level, because right now what is going on, that unfortunately there is too much of change into the videos that is being implemented. Like right now, we are recording this podcast and we made a decision to record it on 3 cameras, for example, for that specific reason that people, if it's recorded on 1 camera, it's not dynamic enough and it's going to be too boring to watch. And probably some people will say today, oh, well, the pace with which you speak is too slow, it's very hard to listen to you. So people are getting really judgmental about the quality of content specifically published on the social media. And this is what makes us as teachers very puts us in a very difficult position, because every single time when we create the lessons, we need to make them more interesting, more entertaining, gamify it. Many times I come to the classroom and students say, I want to play a game. Can we play a game today? Can we play Kahoot? Can we have something fun? And I'm like, okay, but the life is not only about the fun things. Sometimes you have to deal with more serious stuff. And indeed, I think myself, I also noticed that if maybe a couple of years ago when I studied in the university, I could totally read long academic articles of 17 pages. Right now, with all these GPTs, you can just summarize it and squeeze it down to a couple of sentences and get to know what's inside of them. So people indeed getting more and more distracted. Well, I think we talked a lot about the Russian education so far. I just wanted to switch to the topic of being a woman in being a Russian woman, because we talked privately between each other quite a lot about this every single summer or winter, and I come here for vacation almost every half a year. We get together and we discuss how the stereotypes about what is expected from women is really putting a lot of pressure on us. What do you think are the societal expectations, like especially for the viewers that are not from Russia and who wants to understand the Russian culture? What do you think are the main expectations that society puts on us?
I think it's still the same kind of as, I don't know, like 30 years ago, that by the age of, I don't know, 25 or 30, you should have a husband and kids. The more, the merrier, I know, the better. And I think when you are working as a teacher, these expectations are even, I would say, higher, because there are so many examples of teachers, and there are in like this exact way. They are very young and they have a husband, and maybe they already have children, and so there are around you
So
so
you have
many of
lots
them.
of colleagues, right?
Yeah,
Great.
colleagues who have all of that, and you can.
But yeah, just to clarify the main point here that both of us are still single and both of us are still without kids, obviously. But in our age gap, I always forget I'm turning 30 this year and
For 26.
you're turning 26. So indeed, like there is still, I guess for me specifically, the expectation is so much higher than for you. You still have this, until 30. But that's true. If you go around Russian streets, you see lots of young mothers with their babies playing around on the playgrounds, and it's a very common scene. And if you look into the messages of the Russian government, it tries to incentivize a lot how to make people have kids before 25, which is a very good initiative. If you think about, we talked about reproductive age right now, that the reproductive function declines drastically after 30 years. So I guess it's a very good thing to do it before 25. So, but then it's always hard to balance between a career and having relationship and having family. Maybe here in Russia, I guess we are blessed to have government support, because for the birth of the first child, I don't remember how much do they pay. Do you remember in Russian rubles?
Maybe 100,
A
like.
million? I don't remember. I think I calculated, but years ago, and years ago it was something like $8,000 that you could invest into the first payment of for example, into the first payment of your apartment building, if you wanted to buy somewhere to live. But still, even yeah, I guess my major concern is being Peruvian right now and living in Peru, comparing with Russia, that I have to, even if I make a decision to be a mother one day, I have to pay for it myself, a lot of different things. So, for example, a clear difference between Russia and Peru, the time that they give to be with your baby once it's born. So, in Russia, you guys have 1 year and a half to stay
mm,
at home.
yeah, but you can stay longer, but
Mm-hmm.
uh paid, it's 1 year and a half or maybe
Yeah.
2 years.
But it's extremely generous because if you think about it, in the rest of the world, it's normally only 3 months. Or, yeah, it's 3 months. So, for example, a colleague of mine right now gave a birth to the baby, and she was out in April, right 1 week before the baby was born, and then she has to come back right now in July. So, yes, 3 months only. And I guess 3 months is not really enough to spend the time with the child because you want to see him grow, you want to have, teach him language. For example, in Russia here, we teach a lot of different songs and poetry and trying to incentivize the early development of children. So that's kind of sad story to begin with. That's why, like, I'm maybe feel sad about not establishing my life here. But from another part is that I feel I don't feel ready for that. It's just too many things to handle in the modern world. You see how the world is getting more and more complex. All these problems with artificial intelligence, how it's taking away certain jobs, and pollution problems, how cancer rate is going up. And you start getting fearful, like, to which world am I going to bring my child if I'm going to have one? So, what do you think about child free people in Russia? Do you belong to them? Do you feel like you understand their position?
I definitely understand their position, and mm, it's okay. Like I get why they don't want to have kids, and I'm not sure if I'm child free. I'm still deciding on it. But yeah, there are so many people who left Russia in the past like couple of years, and we never know what is here uh, up to us, and how can we bring another human being in this world to deal with all these problems. Yeah, it can be very, very scary because, like, it's scary from your own point of view, and this human is um, very little, and you need to also teach them um, like something about this world, um, how it works, and sometimes you feel like a child yourself. So it's, I know, mind blowing to think about another child by your side.
Yeah, I think I still don't feel myself 100% mature. Luckily, all this time that I was living abroad, I didn't have to think about the cost of electricity, or the cost of water, or how to install different like measurement system for all of these things, or how to call a plumber and fix something, because I just lived in the hired apartments every single place where I was living, and I lived in many different countries by now. And I just realized, once the people start talking about like adult stuff, things that are happening, especially when you go back here to Russia, it's scary. I don't feel like I'm mentally prepared for that. For example, for the first time this year, I had to pay my taxes because I became Peruvian, and they actually have to submit like a declaration. I think here it's also the case. And I just realized that for every single hour that I work, 14% of my salary is being discounted. So let's say I work for 60 minutes, but I'm being paid like sort of for 50 minutes only because of this. And just you don't think about that once you're younger. You don't understand how much taxes do you pay for things. Or today we were talking also, we went to the cemetery to see my mom's grave, and my dad was telling me about all the complexities of organizing the funerals here in Russia, how it's becoming more and more difficult. For example, if you want to put the two graves together next to your family members, that previously you can just make a phone call, and then there was a person who can get into your situation and actually do this for you. but it's not possible anymore. And that's kind of mind blowing. You don't think about all these death scenarios until you're getting 30 and until you see people starting passing away. So I guess for me personally, this return to Russia after 8 years of living abroad, kind of has a mixed feeling. I'm very happy to be back home because I miss it greatly. But if I think about us getting older, as I told you earlier today, um, life is definitely getting increasingly challenging, not only with the things outside of our control, like political situation in the world, but also with the things that we have to deal with, right?
Yeah, and going back to educational system and problems, um, it's a pity we don't study uh, mm, at least a little bit of something like this at school. And um, for the last, I don't know, maybe 5 years, there's been a subject like about finance, and like I think it's a positive change. I would say um, it's a good thing to teach students about bills and money, how to deal with with the money, about salaries and everything. Um, but again, the for example, the book I work with, it's for 3 years. So one book for 3 years for three different grades. So you can teach like the fifth, the sixth, and the
Mm-hmm.
seventh grade with one book. And for like seventh grades, it's too kind of childish, and for the fifth grade, it's maybe a little bit too um, complicated. So yeah, but overall, uh, it's a good thing, I would say.
Yeah, I think, to my knowledge, the Peruvian government also wants to implement financial education into the system of like national curriculum. But to be honest, I personally don't believe that it's the most effective way of teaching finance. I guess the kids still learn a lot of patterns from their parents. If I think about my way of dealing with money, is largely how my mom used to deal with it. And yeah, no matter what you are going to teach at school, I guess the family still has a lot of influence on the children. But definitely, I guess the money is one of the key issues right now, like turning 30 this year, because you just realize, especially in the Russian world right now, there are so many influencers and people who made their money on social media, who just created some interesting product and began to sell it online and with online education, and became very popular in that. And I guess this is something that is not yet so popular in Latin America. So there is still kind of, unexplored space and opportunity for that. And you just feel this pressure. You just realize that maybe this $20 salary per hour that you're earning is not, what your expectations are. And you can actually, if you think about all the values that you have, all the things that you've studied and you've done in life, it can be increasing your self-worth. But again, this little voice in your head is telling you constantly, but all the people has always been like that and nobody around you can do more, so you just have to be just like everybody. So do you also feel this pressure of like just being an average just like everybody here?
Yeah, I think so. And also, I can say that even when you want to do more, even at school, when you like want to work harder, do better, and really improve, and then you think about money and the worth of it all, and you think that it might be just a waste of energy, waste of time, and you will get nothing from it. Not only like I'm not only talking about money, but like energy back, time back, and um, yeah, like it's like I said, it might be not worth it. But of course, money would be kind of like the main point there, like at least for money, I could do something. Of course, money is not the like the like one problem, the one thing. Of course, I want to do that just because the system needs improving, and the students really need this too. But the money is very important in this situation.
I guess I've heard somebody in the Russian speaking world saying that after all, money is just energy, and this is the energy that you share between people. So, for example, if I ask you to teach me English for 1 hour, you give me your energy, and we exchange of these energies, and the money is just the means of transactions between us. So the thing is with money on the post-Soviet space is that we were told quite a lot that money is something negative, that lots of money can bring you unhappiness. And that was really true in the 90s. If you think about the 90s, when the Soviet Union fell apart and when the capitalist Russia began, lots of people lost their lives because of um, some problems that occurred in trying to get private properties. People were just trying to steal and kill, and we grew up in the 90s with this message that having lots of money is just simply unsafe. So maybe it's recorded at the back of our heads. But now that I was in the United Arab Emirates on like a connecting flight, traveling from Peru to Russia to visit you, one thing I've realized that money is so powerful. What you can see how this country, Dubai specifically, so just part of the country. I don't know how is the rest of the United Arab Emirates, how it was transformed in only the span of 30 years thanks to this oil money that they've got. So, and obviously thanks to the vision of their ruler, but it's impressive. And I guess getting out of this reality of like seeing developing world, well, I still consider Russia to be a developing country and Peru as well, just to see how this money being put into the right place by the right people, how it can actually create something. It's very inspiring experience, I would say. But let's go back. We talked a little bit about being a woman, and we talked a little bit about motherhood and how hard it is to be a mother or try to plan to be a mother in the modern day world. What are other things that makes it difficult to be a woman?
Uh, Also, going back to salaries and payments, the payment for men are higher than for women, and I think it's not only in Russia, of course. Um, I think I can feel that, like on my social media, I can see changes, like some positive changes for women. Um, like, I don't know, um, body shaming, or just
Is it gone
like,
completely or
of
is it
course,
less?
not like lesser. You look, and the way you always think um, to look a certain way and to fit in these standards. And on my social media, I can see some positive changes,
Yeah.
and I think that it also it's happening in the real world, but it's not. When I um, like go to the real world, I can see that there's still very very deep, and I I would say there, like in Russia, it's still there, and I see women being obsessed with, I don't know, like their weight or the overall look every day almost, and I know it's just
True. If we have some common friends that, for example, they cannot go without the makeup to the store just to buy bread, just because it's considered to be not okay by the society. Well, some people obviously don't care, but as Ksenia says here, I guess that's right. Like lots of comments on the internet for people being either too thin or too overweight, for not being beautiful enough. And I've also heard about the cases of discrimination in some Russian companies when the women were required to look certain way, that you have to wear makeup, that you have to wear high heels to look pretty. Um, I don't know. I think in maybe in some developed countries in Europe, I used to study in the Netherlands. That's not the case. You could clearly see the difference between Eastern Europe and Western Europe, because Eastern European women were generally better, well dressed because of like societal expectations, and the Western Europeans, they didn't care as much about their appearance. But yeah, it's definitely a problem that I believe is existing in our society. What about wage gap? I recognize that it also happened to me. I don't want to discredit the information. I just learned about it indirectly. And unfortunately, then there are no mechanism, like no transparency whatsoever in both of the countries, just to guarantee that the same amount of working hours and the same amount of effort will get you the same pay as a male person who does the same job as you. I guess in Russia, maybe you agree with me, we have lots of these gender stereotypes that are present in the society, that are specifically seen on these gender holidays. For those who don't know, we have in Russia International Women's Day that is celebrated on March 8th. We have a male analog of this, but it's a day of the defenders of the fatherland that is celebrated 2 weeks before that on 23rd of February. And the idea is that on those gender holidays, on the male day, they are promoting masculinity and like this hard masculinity of, encouraging men to be strong and protecting their motherland. And in on International Women's Day, even though it's supposed to be the holiday about eradicating gender pay gap, having total equality when it comes to promotions at work, gender opportunities, and no glass ceiling. But the truth is that, tell me, I don't want to, be mistaken, but what sort of wishes do you get on International Women's Day here in Russia?
Be as beautiful as we are. Smile more. Be kind. Be, um, I don't know, groundbreaking. Is that the
Yeah.
word? Humble. To be humble.
Modest.
Yeah, modest.
Decorate with yourself
Yeah,
this
be
space.
beautiful.
Blossom like a spring flower, because the month of March in Russia is the springtime. And this is something apart from the money stereotypes that we've got into our childhood, I think is also affecting us a lot. Now that I'm reflecting a lot about my first 30 years of life, I just realized how perfectionist we were. We were always growing up as like these nice girls, good girls, that we have to behave certain way that people like us. We have to really try to not to express our true feelings and emotions, just because it's not okay for women to be too bossy or to be overly assertive, I guess, in communication. And that's what I see as the problem in Latin America as well. So if I had a chance to change something in education in both countries and work on further projects, I guess that would be women empowerment, because I just realized that there are so many people unlike us that still, I think, like have quite a strong voice and the present in the society, that are just too afraid, that just is a shadow of their husbands, or they are in codependent relationships with their family members, just following what their mothers and fathers have to say, and they just don't have their own way of thinking, and it's too hard for them to speak up. Is there anything specific that you feel like came from your family, any sort of value or belief that you think are hindering your personal growth? that doesn't help you to make this quantic jump and get out of your current reality?
We were talking about money, so
Yeah.
there is a phrase that I know maybe there is something like this in English. We were never rich, so we shouldn't start. Yeah, and you something that you always need to save up for something more, or to be somewhere where there's stability, not only again like financially stable, but um, you can't lost your job in any minute or something like this. And yeah, you should always think about your future. You can't live by one day. So yeah, you shouldn't try anything too risky.
I think it happened to me as well. Those sorts of messages got I've heard those messages from family members when I was changing jobs. So the story goes like that. In total, I have had 3 jobs so far. My first one in a bilingual school, being an English teacher. Then I became world history and geography teacher in another one. But I was like gradually climbing the social ladder because I started in a school with middle class families. And then right now I work in the top 3 schools in Lima, Peru. And also, every single time I told my family, hey, I'm switching jobs, they're like, is it safe? Are you sure they are taking you? What if something doesn't work out? And yeah, I think that in the Soviet Union, everything was super predictable. You started your career path, and then you could continue your entire life being in the same job, and it was guaranteed to you. Nobody would take it away from you completely. So, like the being out of job, not having income, that was just not an issue for them. And many of our parents are still living with this mentality that it's first of all it's hard to get out of this general pattern of being average, and second that it can be dangerous. And I don't know how much psychological session it will cost us or what sort of neurolinguistic programming we need to take into, but for example, yeah, for me, like talking about money nowadays, it's still pretty uncomfortable. We were discussing the prices of the apartments recently with one of my friends, and he named me the sum of money that he is planning to invest into one of his apartments and use it as an Airbnb for tourism because Lima is a very popular destination. And I remember that inside my body language, I just felt that I'm shrinking like that because it just felt uncomfortable to think about so much money. It just probably, it's unimaginable right now in this moment of time to get to this point in life, to have this kind of salary and to break this pattern, unfortunately, right? I don't know any, but speaking about like stereotypes about being a woman, is there a message that you've got from your mom that you think is also damaging? Or maybe not your mom, maybe your like surroundings, anybody in your environment.
Maybe the like source of my kind of mental problems with look and weight and everything like this comes from my grandmother. And I've realized that just recently because she talks about all of that stuff very, very often. And not only about herself. And uh, she can say something and it's very casual for her. She doesn't even think that it might be hurtful or damaging for us or even for herself. Uh, she can say everything. Like she noticed that I put like a couple of kilos, and she immediately says that. And yeah, there is something you realize that there is a problem. You know what you can do, but it sits so very, very deep in you. All of that about money, about trying something else, about um, getting a like bigger in your career or like in your look, because it comes from your family. For so many years you've learned all of these things, and it's so hard to unlearn them.
Yeah, I think if 80% of the things that we are believing actually come from, our closest circle, which is our family and friends. They always say, well, at least, the Russian public speakers in business world say that if you can see your five friends around you, that will determine your future success. And I truly believe that. That's why maybe a couple of years ago, specifically, I started getting interested into the field of coaching and psychology. And I actually studied neurolinguistic coaching, which connects what our brain thinks with the way how we say things. And once I went through this neurolinguistic program, I just realized how many different things that we say to each other every day that gets in our brain. And once you start analyzing whose voice is speaking, who told you this part of information in the past, where does this belief come from? Many times it's your mom, your dad, your grandmother, your grandfather, and most of the things, they are super damaging things. In my case, precisely, I'm being very harsh on myself. I'm, normally such a perfectionist. And for the working life, I mean, it's perfect. My boss likes it, that I'm being a responsible person, handing in things on time and just, following with the general requirements and expectations. But it's this, internal voice in the head of not being good enough, try harder, do it better. You could, push it a little bit more here. That's kind of, I don't think it's gonna get us to the good place in life in the future. That can be very damaging for the mental health in the long run. And that's why I'm planning to continue my education. I really want to study a psychology degree, if it's possible, as my second bachelor, or maybe as a master degree. Sometimes it's possible to study it as a master, because I just realized that if I want to have a fulfilling private life, have a relationship without any codependencies, and also bring up my own children, I probably need a little bit more. Just to switch to this topic of psychological well being, what is the situation right now in Russia with going to the psychologist? Because when I left the country, it was a huge taboo here. Our parents always told us, "You're going to psychologist? Are you crazy?" So that was sort of a message that we were hearing all the time.
Mm,
So is it still the same?
like among our parents or people older, I think it's still the same. But our generation and the younger generation, um, they actually think about it like more often, and some of them still think of it like something like a I know, illness, disease, or something that you might have been crazy to go to a psychologist. But there are more and more people who understand why we need this, and that we really need this. And yeah, it's good. Or again, maybe it's something that I see on my social medias, and that I think that it's actually improving, but in real world it's not. I actually don't know so many people, um, like from, maybe not from my friends, but like just good um, relatives, or
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Distant relatives, maybe. Mm-hmm.
yeah, who talks about like mental health or going to psychologist or something like this. So
But I'm glad that it's becoming more and more popular topic. Now there are even like all these Russian memes and jokes about, I'm only going to date a person. Show me your certificate that you went through and 10, hours of therapy or something like that. Or what style of therapy do you prefer? So that's really positive change. Well, I wish we could talk longer with you, because I know that you have to travel to your holiday destination. It's summertime in Russia, and she is going to Sochi to spend her summer vacation on the Black Sea. So that's very beautiful. But just to wrap it up, I think I just want to end up on a positive note, because in Peruvian schools, they always ask us, to be positive thinkers. Maybe if there is any final message that you want to leave to all the people that are listening us, especially I think we talked a lot about women, and just to say something to them that they need to hear, maybe younger women who don't have as much life experience as us. What would be your final message just to close for today?
I would say that we are really capable of everything that we dream of, and the realization of the problems in our family and with our mentality is the main key. And if we get that, we can change that, and we shouldn't be scared of changing, even if it's only us. Like if we feel that there's still no positive changes, no, it's not. There are a lot of changes, and but you shouldn't be scared to be like one person who want to change something. You should just change it.
Okay, so let me see if I understood you correctly. Basically, never be afraid. I think I'm going to summarize it myself, like in my own words, what I understand. Always try to get out of your comfort zone, and everything is possible. I guess our stories prove that. And yeah, believe in the beauty of your dreams, because we are living in the 20th century and it's so much easier to be a woman right now with all the opportunities being given to you. Yeah, we are living in, despite all the complexities of the political situation or economic situation. I believe in terms of gender equality, we have freedom to travel without approval of husbands or parents. We can explore the world. We can learn languages. So yeah, just to sign to go along with the words of Ksenia, I would say try to do your best and just follow your dreams.
Yeah, and even if you feel like you're the only person fighting, just don't give up because you're not alone. Yeah,
That's right.
the
We're
simplest
all in this together.
message.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you so much, Ksenia. It was a pleasure having you here.
it was a
Have a
pleasure.
very great flight.
Thank you so
See
much.
you hopefully next January.
Thank you. It was a
Bye.
pleasure to be here.